Alright class, a demonstration about this idea of the clock face method. Firstly though, I wanted to show you, here's a corner of the room in my house that's not very interesting. And if I chose to draw this for this assignment, I would get a bad grade because there's not much going on here. It's basically an empty corner. But if I go over here, maybe there's something a bit more interesting going on. I can't show it super clearly because my computer and the cord and the webcam I'm using doesn't let me stretch super far from my computer. But nonetheless, that's something that would be a little more interesting because there's like a arch and there's some objects in there. Maybe over here, with all the craziness on top of my dresser, that could be pretty interesting too. Okay? But you want to go throughout the house and stake out some areas that would be interesting and try to figure out an area that would work the best for this project. I'm going to set up in another location and we'll start trying to do a demonstration of this. Well, it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to switch it up because of the way my desktop is set up here and the camera that I have. I'm going to have to use this corner over here. But I want to show you this idea on more than just, that it applies to more than just a corner of the room. For example, a simple thing like a drinking straw. I'm looking down on this here. If I'm trying to draw this in space, I could actually line up my pencil with the straw and be able to tell where it's at on the page, as well as the ellipse. See how I said about the major and minor axes of an ellipse? If you remember that from the other lecture. See, there's that's the major axis. And now, this is the major axis. That's parallel to my eyes in the camera. By drawing it, dropping it down. If I try to go like this to find the minor one, then I'm breaking a rule, right? I'm trying to poke my pencil, my clock hand through the clock, and that doesn't work. So I have to keep it like that, parallel. So how do I find this angle right here? Well, even though it's going away from me, I can still use my pencil parallel to the camera to find it. If I move it right, it'll be the angle still. Even though I'm not poking it out, it'll still match the two-dimensional angle, even though it's parallel to me. See? Right there. It's parallel to you and the camera and me as well, but it still matches the angle visually. So this is the part of this whole process that gets pretty complicated and frustrating to people is when something they know is going away from them in space, it's going out here, they want to try to push their pencil like this to measure it, but it doesn't work. Because you're translating 3 dimensions in the round onto a flat piece of paper. You have to keep your pencil flat so it will match on the page in front of you. Let me try to show you this in the drawing here in my sketchbook where I just draw this simple object and then we'll go on to the corner of the room. Using my sketchbook so that you can see the object and the paper still, okay? But when you do this, you're going to be using your 18 by 24 white paper to do the corner of your room. Okay. So here I am sitting up here, I'm getting this. I want to see how I can draw this using angle measuring. So I have a basic shape here that's a certain height compared to its width, overall height to the straw, and has some angles on it. So what can I do? Firstly, what do I have to do when I do any drawing for this class right now? But you want to think about it for a second. What I have you guys doing? Drawing, right? Drawing a cross on your page. Now what do you have to do? think about it for a second. I'm not going to answer the question right away. You have to find the overall shape of the box, the overall size that it will fit in. I have a little cool handout here in this module that shows you could actually do the box shaped a little bit more, not just a box, like an overall frame around it. That's an idea I don't introduce right away because I don't want to get people confused, but nonetheless, that's something you might end up wanting to go towards a little bit. So I'm going to say what the height is compared to the width by doing my regular measuring from the elbow out. It's got 1, 2 height to 1 width. So I get to pick how big I want it to be on my page. I'm going to pick about that big. I'm going to use the top. I'm going to use the top up there as my basic unit of measurement. Go 1, 2. So that's the width and the height. It's the overall height, not just the height of the glass. Oh, it's 2.5. I'm a little bit off. So I have that box it would fit into. On the page. There it is. It's very awkward to do this on the camera, I must say. There we go. Because I'm trying to draw and show you the object and the paper at the same time. Okay, that's it. Now, I can find some of the angles of things on this, like the major and minor ellipse axes by doing that. See? And also the angle of the straw. That's cool. So I can do that. It goes, it's probably about 1 o'clock. And I have the different sides of the water cup I can measure. Right there and right there. So I'm going to actually just put some markings down on the page, like this is the straw. I got the ellipse right here. I'm going to have to move this camera so I'm pause and change it up. Alright, so I've got it blocked out, this circle on the square box on my page that this drinking glass would fit into. And I've got to try to find some angles of things like the straw. So I'm going to hold my arm out all the way from my shoulder with my elbow locked, just like that. Fixed point, not poking my pencil through, but matching up the angle. And then I'm going to see what time it is. I'm using one eye closed, just like I did for the other one. So one eye closed, arm all the way out, shoulder locked, just like I had before. Not poking in and out, but straight up and down, parallel to the picture plane, what I'm looking at. One eye closed, and then I move it, the pencil, until it matches the angle. Okay? So the straw's like that. So it would cover over it. If it's bigger than my pencil, then I move it until it matches the outside line. Well, if I'm trying to find the axis, I put it in through the middle of it, like on that sculpture. From the slideshow, the arm of the person, it was going down the middle of it, find the axis angle. Okay, so I have that. I have my box. Let's start with just getting the angles of this right here. So I'm going to move it until I have it like lined up exactly with it. My arm all the way out, and then I'm going to see what time it is. It's about 12:30. So on my page, I'm going to draw just a line. That's like if I was at 12 o'clock straight up and down, 12:30. Okay, I'm going to do it on the other side too. Find it. I got it right there. It's also it's about 11:30, so I know it's going up that way. So I'm going to do the same thing. Now I'm going to find the top of that cup. So I'm going to measure down and see how far it is, how big the top of the cup is, how much space it takes up. It goes 1, 2 of the bottom, and it's a little more than the straw, so it's about a third of the way down. So the back of the ellipse is about there, and the top of it is about right there. Okay? That's the measured space of the ellipse. And I know it goes like this angle, like that, so I have to kind of go like that. And the other one's straight up and down, so that's the ellipse. I could do my cross on it. There's the middle point. It's not quite dark enough for you guys, probably. And I'm going to do an intuitive gesture inside there. And now it's got to hit inside all those points. So this is how I'm building up the ellipse. It's not right yet, but I'm not going to freak out about it. What I'm going to do is just keep adjusting it. It's less right because I'm trying to hold it up to the camera and move it around and look at my pencil and sit in a different angle than you the whole time. But nonetheless, I think you get the idea here. It's coming across. So here's these other angle lines I have from the side of the cup. I just did guidelines. I'm not going. Those aren't going to be the edge of the cup exactly. They're just the guidelines for it. So I have something that's looking pretty accurate on that, like as far as the starting roughing it out. Now I'm going to get something for the line of the straw. Holding it up, seeing what time it is in my mind, one eye closed. From where I'm sitting, which is not quite the camera, it's about 1 o'clock. So I know it comes out of the middle of the ellipse right there. I'm going to put a line at about 1 o'clock or so up on the page. That's that one right there. I'm drawing these darker than I would because I want you to be able to see them. So now I can come in here and start to refine this and say, okay, I think that my box isn't quite even for the ellipse. So I'm going to actually adjust it. So, okay, I think I didn't get quite through the middle of it for the getting the angles, so the middle of it's a little off. And I can start to adjust that angle. Say, okay, the tip of it has to hit there, so I need to adjust it a little bit better. The circle's turning in space. I'm going to adjust that, build it up. I'm getting something that's getting closer. I don't like it totally yet, but once I start measuring some stuff, I'm going to check the height of the straw from here to here, directly up and down, and compare it to something from there to there. And it's only a tiny bit bigger than this, so that's alright, that's looking good. I have it too big, so I'm going to drop down a little bit off that. I'm going to start adding these lines on the edge of the cup. I'll kind of measure them, even though they're really small, those ones right there, and see what it is. Okay. They're about a third, a fourth of the straw, so I'm going to use that and say, okay, that should come down to there. That's the cup. But I know it's an ellipse as well, it's matching it. So I'm just going to start building that. Okay, that's this right here. Looks like I got my axis point of my drawing a little wrong, now that I see it here. So I'm going to adjust that and say, okay, this is the axis of the cup. all the way through. It goes like that. So it should be roughly the same on each side. So it looks like I got my cup a little too wide over that way. So I can start to erase these extra lines. And keep adjusting it. I'm going to erase these ones up here. They're starting to get in the way of my drawing. Big X shape. So I'm going to clean up my drawing as I go and keep adjusting it. This is like the methodology of not being afraid of putting a line down or getting something wrong, but to actually just keep getting it more and more accurate each time. I'm a sculptor also, as well as someone who draws and does painting and things. Primarily my art form that I do in the world and show my work has been mostly sculpture. I've shown drawings and prints and things as well quite a bit, but you know, that's probably my primary medium that I was trained in. And so I like to think about some of this as if I'm carving away some of the time. Like every piece that isn't right, that I'm adjusting, as if I'm carving away a piece of, you know, wood that doesn't belong there from the object, or a piece of clay that shouldn't be there. It helps me to think about it that way because I think to myself, I don't have to think, oh, that line's not right. Oh no, I messed it up. I can think, well, I'm just carving off a piece or adding it back on. And it helps me remember that I'm actually drawing shapes and objects that are physical rather than just lines. So I'm not happy with this yet, but I'm building it up every step of the way. I'm going to keep checking those angles and say, okay, that's alright, my angle's okay. The problem right now is that the base is too small. It's about 3/4 of the top, and I have it way small. So it's got to be almost up to there, and I have it way small. So I'm going to have to adjust these lines. And I have my angles too dramatic, so I gotta adjust the angles, check them, and I'll say, okay, probably if I would have had the angle at the bottom, the distance at the bottom correct, I would have been able to tell my angles are off because they have to go out so much. When it was narrow, it had to be a sharper angle or a more intense angle because it had to go all the way over. But when it's wider, it doesn't have the same issue going on. If that makes any sense to you, hopefully, let me make sure that my camera is working properly. Yep. Sorry guys, the monitor went to sleep. So I just need to make sure that things are the right size, because when I had it narrow, see how it made the angle have to be more dramatic? When it's wider at the base, to get to the edge of the base, it doesn't have to be such a dramatic angle. Same thing over here is going to happen. So I still have the bottom of it as a square. That's fine, because I'm adjusting it a bit at a time. I can come in here and start to figure out that ellipse as well. There's actually, this is one side of the ellipse. Measure it, use my eye. If I wanted to, I could actually draw the same box, but it's not really visible, so I'm not going to do that. But I can start to carve away some of the extra down there and use the axis lines that I've been doing. Axes of ellipses. This is the axis of the whole cup. This is a straight up and down line. The axis is straight up and down, but these are not, and so it's a reference. And then I did the axes of the ellipse. So I'm keep building it up like this. What I don't like right now is my lines are looking a little hairy, so I can come back in here and clean these up a little bit. Because I've been erasing a lot. And I'm seeing, okay, what's happening now is this is too thick and thin. It's kind of changing. Need to adjust that. And see how it drops down? It doesn't go straight into it. It actually has a little lip, and because it has an overlap, and this screws on top of it. So I've got a problem with my drawing like that. It's not going into it. Should actually be lining up from there up into here. And so I go, okay, I gotta adjust that as well. Go through there. I think it can be very useful to draw through things sometimes, especially on things like ellipses. What I mean is, if I'm drawing this right here, I had this line already here, I just draw through it so I can keep the trajectory of the line going. And then later on I can erase it. So the straw is going to end up blocking out that back part of that circle. But I can just draw through the straw at first, and then later I can erase. Looks like my straw sort of shifted a tiny bit from my angle, so I'm going to redraw it. Either that or I just totally got the straw angle wrong. But I know it comes out of the middle, so I have the middle point there, so then I can just use that as like 12 o'clock is straight up from this. It's going at a slight angle like 1 o'clock, so I'm going to go from my point of view. So there it is. Add some thickness to it. And we can start getting rid of all the extra lines. It's not quite the right thickness yet, but it's coming along. And I also know that the straw is going all the way down into the cup, so when I end up, it's getting distorted by the reflection. So I can draw that. Also, down inside there. It's almost up and down, straight up and down. It's barely off because it has to have room to be inside of the cup. I'm just going to adjust that. So I'm just keeping on adjusting every step of the way and getting angles. If I get something wrong or off, it doesn't really matter because it's pencil. I can come back in and adjust it. So I have my, a basic idea here, but I want to keep adjusting it to make it really accurate. And I can come in here. And that's why I want you to use the white paper, because darkening up the right line, because I want you to be able to really erase on it and get rid of the stuff you don't like that's not working for you. It doesn't feel accurate, and to really have thick enough paper to be able to get in there and erase on it. If you use the newsprint for this drawing in the corner of the room, you have a long drawing you're doing, then you won't be able to really bear down on it and erase if you get things wrong. It kind of rips pretty easily. So, if you don't like something in your drawing, you can, after you've kind of put a new line down and you're getting to the point where you're having things boxed out and correcting them, it's a good idea to actually really adjust it, spend the time to put it in the right spot and then get rid of the old one afterwards. But don't just leave it. Say, oh, the straw's off, I don't care. It'll just stay off, I'll just leave it that way. But actually, spend the time to fix it. Do the work to fix it. Got that in the right spot finally. So I can get rid of some of those extra lines. Get it more accurate. It's bigger down here because the water is magnifying the straw, the size of the straw. See how this is wider than that? If you measured it, you could say 1. It's a 1.5 almost. So it's way bigger. Water is a good point to measure. See how the water's in the glass right there? See how high up it is? It's same as the straw off there. So that's the straw height. The water goes all the way up to there. And it also follows the contour of the cup. Because it's an ellipse inside. And if I do that accurately, I can really show you that there's an ellipse inside there where the water's at. Part of the straw sticks above the water, and part of it goes into it. And so that's when it starts getting magnified. This is where you really have to be careful that you're not shifting your eyes all the time and moving around, because otherwise you could really start getting these things twisted. Like this one is being seen from one perspective, and then you start slumping down your chair, and this one's seen from another perspective, and so they don't match each other. So that's why you got to sit parallel to what you're drawing, and really try to keep your eyes at the same spot the whole time. So this is a little ring on the end of the thing down there. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to measure it and say, okay, it's about a little less than halfway between here and here. See it right there? So I'm going to do a little hash mark and say, okay, this is about half the space. It's a little less. So I'm going to start doing some internal measurements off things. What do I mean by internal measurements? Comparisons may be a better word. Instead of just sticking to the basic unit of measurement, after a while, once I know things are pretty accurate with that basic unit of measurement, I can start comparing things to each other. Like, this is pretty accurate, so I use that as my unit of measurement to see how high the water was. Now that I know the water is pretty accurate, so I can say, how high up is this little nubbin on the end of the straw compared to the water? Well, it's a little less than half, so I can go, okay, there's half right there. So it's a little less, and that'll be where the nubbin is. It's the thing that makes it so you can't drop, so you can't lose the straw out the top of the cup. But I just messed myself up a lot because I have to refine the measurement. But you get the idea. So then you can come in and do like a tight contour drawing of that stuff and keep building it up. There's something happening to my pencil as I'm going along that I told you the guys about last time extensively. I gotta sharpen that bad boy up, otherwise it is not gonna work for me. You'll see on pencil sharpeners sometimes they have two holes. One is to extend the lead out, and the other one's to sharpen it. So that's what that's about, in case you ever wondered. Take off extra material on the shoulder of the pencil. So just like a corner of the room, this also has angles, and so does a face, and so does any kind of thing you're going to draw. You can use this idea to use the angles, to use this clock-faced method to measure the angles. When you go to do the corner of your room, you're going to want to sit directly facing the corner, so your eyes are facing right at the corner, the straight line up and down. And that's going to want to be the thing that you put down right away. So, you know how I always make you guys draw a cross on your page now? Put yourself so that the corner of the room is directly at that cross in your vision. up and down. And then that way, you know, everything coming onto the wall that's on the left over here will be on the left side of this. And everything that's on the wall to the right will be on the right side of the line. It'll help you out a lot. And then with the ceiling, you're going to do the same thing. So when you first start off, just immediately put that line down and the cross line in the middle of the page. Should be where your eyes will be at, hopefully. Put this line down. You could put it down right in the middle of the page, or you could put it where your eyes are located at. And then you're going to want to immediately just get the ceiling in. So you have the corner of the room, the cross. You're going to want to try to get that angle of the ceiling in right away. So you're going to want to keep your pencil directly, put your arm up into the air, keep it flat to you, parallel to your eyes, and then drop it down. It's like 340 for me. I'm going to do the same thing, hold it this way. I'm going to turn it. I'm not letting it poke out. I'm going to keep my one eye closed, line it up, and then open up both eyes and say, oh, it's about 10:30. Okay. So 10:30 on the page. And that's the ceiling right up there, roughly. I can erase the extra lines. The edge, I'm erasing the part that's not the corner right now, so you get something of the ceiling. See, this is the corner, that's the ceiling. You guys can see this, hopefully. Okay, and then now that I have that, I can start to build all the other things inside of it that are inside the corner. From where I'm sitting, there's like a mirror, a bed, a table, nightstand over here. I'm going to get all that stuff in there. And it's all going to be by measuring the space. Like how high. I'm going to use that mirror right there. Can you see it as a basic unit of measurement? And say, okay, there's 1, 2 mirrors above, and then I can see about 2, 1.5 below it. So up to the corner of the room. So I'll go aspect 2. So I'm going to make the mirror about this big. Has to be able to fit 2. So I'll make the mirror about that big. Put it right here. So go 1, 2, break up the space. Okay? So I'd keep building it that way, and I'll show you. I'm going to pause it and then draw a little bit more and show you how it comes along. So I just started developing it further, and I was using the mirror over there as the way to measure everything. This mirror here. And I realized when I was doing it, I wanted to tell you guys something. There's some kind of angles like this one over here that are very difficult to figure out because they kind of go away from you. And so I want you to really, when you're getting to those spots on your drawing, to slow yourself down quite a bit and to get these type of angles that you need. You're going to really have to make sure you don't poke your pencil through the picture plane and really spend a bit of time lining it up like that, just lining it up parallel to you and dropping it down and looking at what time it is with 2 eyes and really get that angle on there accurate, because you're going to want to shift things and get things a little funny. This is the angle I'm talking about right here. The other thing that you can do as a test is, in the real world, you know that this angle, sorry, turning off the fan. This angle is isn't actually going away, going at a sharp angle. It's flat and it's 90 degrees. So your mind is tricking you out all the time. So in the real world, you're thinking, well, that's flat. It's at 90 degrees. I can't do it a different way. You're going to have to get your mind out of the symbol system that you have and really get into this visual measuring and seeing the angles, flat angles. That's why you just close an eye, line it up, and then open up your eyes. Look at your pencil only. That way you don't trick yourself out, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? That's an important thing. Another thing that's really important is to just not get too frustrated and get overly annoyed with yourself to the point where you just want to quit. You just have to take breaks if you need to and not be afraid to just go, okay, I got to breathe for a minute. I'm getting really frustrated with this. It's not looking right. I'm quitting now and turning it in and it doesn't matter. Well, don't do that. If you need to, give yourself a little timer on your phone or something, and every 20 minutes or so just have it go off and then take a quick break, stretch out, get fresh perspective on it. Okay? The other thing to do is, if you have something that's like a flat plane like this, the top of a dresser or something, you can measure from here to here visually. And that distance, it's like usually, even though it's the top of the dresser, probably in your mind, you're just huge. There's a lot of stuff on it. It's really big. I know it's a big space. Well, you can't see that much of it, and that's the issue. So you need to measure it so you get the small sliver that you can actually see is on your page here. Right? This is a pretty small little sliver compared to how big the top of that nightstand actually is. But I did it by lining up the top of my pencil to the back of the nightstand and then moving my finger up and down until I could get it, and seeing how much that was compared to the basic unit of measurement, which is only like a third of the mirror, and then it had to be really small on my drawing. And I didn't like it. It wasn't making sense to me at first, but I was like, okay, well, that's what I can see. I know it's actually bigger in real life when I go over to it, but that's what I can see. And so once I got that line down here, it helps me get these angles in place. So that's something important. I got that line measured, then I could get these angles a little bit better. Something important when you're doing this is to check yourself multiple ways. Check the height of something, like the thickness of the ellipse on our camera. Pan the camera down. You could check this distance visually. You could go over here and check it this way, but you can check it vertically by how much of it you can see. So you line up the top of your pencil and move your finger. That's how much of it you can see. And compare that to something else, your basic unit of measurement. Or take your basic unit of measurement and compare it to something else that's bigger. But sometimes what I'm trying to say, if something's smaller than your basic unit of measurement, like on this I was using the straw, and this space visually is smaller, then I could say, oh, it takes up about 3/4 of my basic unit of measurement. So there it is, and go, okay, it takes up about 3/4 of it. So I can use my basic unit of measurement either way. Like I could use it to say, it's 1 and a bit of those down to the water. Or I could say this is smaller, so it takes up about 3/4 of it. So there it is. That gives you kind of a way to use it when things are smaller than your unit of measurement. You could say they take up about 1/4 of my unit of measure, 1/4 of it, or 1/2 of it, or 3/4 of it. Or if something's much bigger than your basic unit of measurement, you can use it to say, okay, there's about 3 of my basic unit of measurements that needs to be in size. It's 3 times bigger. So it works either way. Once you get it on the page and you have it firmly locked in as a proportion, you can use it in lots of different ways. And once you know things are kind of getting accurate, you can start comparing them to each other as well. It's the same with the corner of the room over there. Alright, so I hope you guys are taking care, and if this is baffling you, which it may, because I can't see the corner of your room, so make sure you take that picture of it, snap a picture so I can help you guys go, okay, here we go, snap a picture that I can submit with my drawing. If it's baffling you, though, and you're like having a hard time, it's understandable. It's kind of, at first, these things are new and they feel a little bit like frustrating, and you know, they're different ways of thinking. They're different than the usual ways we are used to thinking. So if it's frustrating you, take a break, but also email me or message me. Let's get on Zoom together and figure this out together, okay? All right, guys, take care.